I could ew. Filming some new content. Coach has got me running 2-a-days.
Put that in there.
Nobody would fucking get that shit.
Titty clown. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk About.
A little bit of a hiatus, but we're back.
I'll say. We decided to come back with a good one.
Summer's approaching, or is it's already here? The hot weather's already here, and it marks the 45-year anniversary for one of the all-time great films. What are we talking about?
Jaws. Jaws. Well, the 4K comes out this week as well, so we decided, in celebration, we would go ahead and talk about one of the great films. I would say great shark films, but there's not many.
There's like one good one, and it's this one. And I was shocked. We were just talking about this before we started recording. 45 years? My God.
Disturbing.
Way ahead of its time.
Yes.
Doesn't feel that old. And honestly, today, if you watch it, that 45-year-old mechanical shark is still pretty terrifying.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the stuff that goes on in it is very relevant to today as well. So it's, it's not some throwaway B movie.
No. It could have easily been that.
It could have been. But I think with the talent around, Spielberg and the actors, the score, everything, they made it into something that transcends that B genre.
Right.
So, I guess some of the history of the film. 1975, as we said, directed by Steven Spielberg. This was like very beginning Spielberg. I think he had done Duel at the time.
Yeah.
And that was a TV movie.
Right. Now, do you have memories of watching this as a kid?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I watched it not...
Really?
Pretty old, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at least after high school.
I remember seeing this, my dad would watch it. We'd come across it on TV. I remember seeing it bits and pieces as a kid. But it wasn't until like later, when I started to appreciate, I guess, movies and stuff that I really sat down and watched the full thing. And,
yeah.
But I definitely have memories of seeing it as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot that even watching it at an older age, I can still appreciate the film. It's definitely not one of those you had to have grown up with it to appreciate it.
Right.
It's kind of timeless.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess today, maybe you can tell it's a fake shark, obviously.
Yeah.
But, damn, you still cannot beat practical effects. And, I mean, that's 45 years old, and it looks better than, like, The Shallows or stuff like that is a couple years old. This old mechanical shark still looks good, and it's a total testament, much like with the T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Shit is timeless,
It helps because they decided not to show the shark that much. As it's famously known, the shark had tons and tons of issues. This was one of the shittiest films to make as far as the production of it. So many issues with the shark.
Yeah, and there's that full-length documentary that's on the first Blu-ray release. It's going to be on this new one coming out. I don't know if it's The Shark is Still Working or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's a couple documentaries where they really go in depth about everything. And yeah, the issues with that shark, I know one of them they put in the water and it just sank to the bottom, and so many issues with running like this mechanical big machine, that it's really a miracle that it came out the way it did.
Yeah, and I think because of that, they decided to make it more of an ominous thing, more of a presence thing, something that you feel, not see.
Right.
And I love that about anything, really, is where they let your imagination, take over and create what is scary.
For sure.
And this is like one of those perfect examples of that.
Okay, so should we get into the story a little bit? If you're living on a rock and you haven't seen Jaws, Roy Scheider is the star of this film.
Who, let me just say, sorry,
No, if we're talking about Roy, interrupt and go ahead. Yeah. Because this guy fucking kicks ass.
He rules.
Yeah.
This was the only thing I ever knew him in. But watching more of his filmography, all that jazz, Sorcerer, Clute. I mean, this guy is... He's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm a big Roy Scheider fan, and he's great in this movie as Chief Brody. He's just moved with his family to Amity Island.
Yeah.
And he's taking over the reins of police chief, and as soon as he moves there, there's a problem with the local beaches and a shark attack, and that's how the film opens. Actually, with a it's a great opening.
It's very suspenseful.
It's like these teens partying and just kind of drinking and whatever, and this girl goes out, and the time of this is awesome because like it's kind of like dusk, I guess, or like early in the morning or something like that, and that's what they always say is like when you should not be in the water if it's like shark infested, because that's when they're most active. So I like that, and right off the bat you see this girl kind of pulled under. We don't see the shark. You don't see the shark until a while,
but you get the perspective from the shark,
right,
looking up at her,
right,
and then of course you get John Williams' simplistic score,
which that's so cool because like I don't know, to see the perspective of the shark, like that's a genius idea.
Absolutely genius.
The camera's going through the water and you see these legs dangling, and it's like we're in the point of view of the villain, like if you're watching Halloween, it's like Michael Myers, you're seeing what he's seeing. It's very, very interesting.
It's a very interesting choice. But yeah, after that happens, he, as police chief, decides to close the beaches.
Right.
But you have Murray Hamilton.
Yes.
That's his real name.
Right.
Who plays the mayor.
Yes.
And I just want to say real quick, Murray Hamilton also plays Mr. Robinson in The Graduate.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. But he decides...
Can we just say how relevant this is to like what's going on right now in the world?
It's not a shark. It's a virus, but it's...
Right.
This movie is... It's a lot about like authority and people just trying to sweep stuff under the rug.
Right.
And just... He doesn't want to cause a panic because it's a tourist trap.
Yeah, and you've got Roy Scheider, Chief Brody, who's like just moved to this town, and he's automatically like right off the bat he's presented with this problem and this controversy of like wanting to close the beach, and the mayor is like, dude, this new guy's coming in. We're not closing down. This is a big tourist attraction for the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So much like now with the virus going around, people still want to go to the beaches because it's a fun thing to do in the summer. So very relevant to the time. So you have Roy Scheider's character Brody, who wants to shut these beaches down. He's just moved here. The mayor insists that no, we're not shutting them down. They have a coroner, I believe, look at the girl, and they come up with a conclusion that she was killed in a boating accident. So they're totally sweeping the shark thing under the rug, and Roy Scheider's not happy about it, but what can he do? They keep the beaches open, and sure enough, they're packed, and that's when this kid is attacked in the middle of a very busy beach session. Tons of people in the water. It's very crazy scene.
It's where you get the famous shot, the zoom in on
so good.
Roy Scheider.
And the look on his face at that moment, he's like, shit, I was right.
I was right.
Yeah.
Now I've got another kid that dies because of this. But that scene itself is like incredible editing and tension building. Because you've got shots of Roy and you got people walking by, and as they walk by it cuts to closer and closer of him.
Yeah.
It's kind of tension filled and hectic. You're looking at all these people. You don't know if there's a shark. If not, you see people with fins on. You don't know if it's a shark or not. So it's fantastic for building that tension until he finally takes out the kid and his blood starts pouring out.
It takes out the kid, and then what happens is a bunch of local fishermen go out on like a bounty. We're gonna find this shark. We're gonna save the swimming area. We're gonna get this shark, and they do get a shark, not the shark.
They get a tiger shark.
A tiger shark.
And there's that quote from that fisherman. I think Roy Scheider says something like, "It's a great white," and he's like, "A what?"
Yeah, so good, so good.
A what?
But because they catch what they think is the shark, the mayor being the stubborn guy he is,
we're in business for the 4th of July. Things are happening for sure,
and it's opening back up. Like I said, classic case of corruption, power, and influence.
Yeah,
they're covering up the truth.
Things hit a little bit closer to home though for Chief Brody, on the 4th of July weekend, because that's when his son is kind of involved in another attack, and he doesn't, he's fine, but he's in shock. And the thing that scared me about that part as a kid is that even now it's creepy, is that they're kind of in like the I don't know what you would call it, but almost like the lagoon part of
Yeah.
the beach. They're in like the
Well-
like the side part. You
Yeah,
know?
and it was filmed in Martha's Vineyard in
Yeah.
Massachusetts, so it's got a certain vibe to it.
Right.
Very lakeside, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of a welcoming place until
Right.
all the shit starts to go down.
And that's kind of when it really, it escalates a little bit because Chief Brody's son, he like goes into shock because he's real close to, I think it's his friends or something that get killed. So, that's kind of when shit starts to hit the fan a little bit in the film.
Yeah, and when do the others start to come in?
Well, that's, we're introduced to Richard Dreyfuss, who's like a scientific...
He's a marine biologist.
Yeah, he knows about sharks, and he comes to the conclusion that girl was in fact killed by a shark, a big shark.
I don't know if it would take that much deducing to figure that out.
Right, and then Robert Shaw, who amazing in this movie.
Another truly underrated actor.
Is this kind of grizzled, like, sea captain sort of shark hunter, and that scene when they're kind of in that town hall meeting and it cuts to Robert Shaw and, his fingers on the chalkboard. It's such a powerful scene because all the attention at that moment, you're focused on who is this guy, it's really kind of powerful. And
Well, there's a lot of great camera work in this as well. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, his whole speech is like just zooming in on him the whole time.
so good. It's such a good, monologue, I guess.
And as well, you've got the scene where Chief Brody and the mayor are on that ferry going across the river, and that's all one take. I mean, beautifully done.
Right. Yeah, and then to, without, analyzing every part of the plot, from there, it's Roy Scheider, Captain Brody, Richard Dreyfuss' character, and Robert Shaw, the grizzled shark hunter. They go out on this boat and they basically are just hitting the water with Robert Shaw kind of leading the pack. Is we're gonna kill this big great white.
And this is what, the second half of the movie?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those, when I saw that as a kid, I felt like most of the movie took place on that boat.
Yeah.
But when you go watch it now, you realize it's kind of
Split up.
like two movies in one, kind of, I guess.
It is in a way, because
Yeah.
they go off on that boat, and the movie kind of changes a lot.
It
more.
does.
It's more of like a character study, a
Right.
lot of talking. They're telling
Right.
stories,
Getting drunk,
comparing scars. It's just kind of a slow move because they're trying to catch the shark, but they can't find it.
Yeah.
And that's when we find out that Quint, who I'm gonna put a picture in here. I dressed up as him for Halloween.
Great costume.
This
great
past
costume.
year. But that's when we learned that he was on the USS Indianapolis
Right.
in World War II, which
Oh, man.
it's a great speech.
Yeah.
Tiny bit of backstory, just real quick, but the Indianapolis was the ship that brought the bomb that they were going to drop on Hiroshima.
Okay.
And then it was hit by Japanese torpedoes, and all the people that survived, that didn't go down with the boat, they had to deal with, sharks and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
he's well versed in the shark stuff. But I saw a clip while I was researching a little bit where Richard Dreyfuss was talking about listening to that speech, and you can see the shock on his face.
Yeah.
He could not take his eyes off of him.
That is such an amazing part of the film, and really all the time those guys spend together is really good because
Yeah.
there's an interesting dynamic where Richard Dreyfuss is kind of like the nerdy, really kind
Yeah,
of follows the rules.
scientist,
This
yeah.
is how we need to do things, and on the total opposite end is Robert Shaw, who's like, no, I'm taking a crazy approach to this. This is what works. We're just going to kill him. We don't need to get all fancy. And then you have Roy
Shitter.
And then you kind of have Roy Scheider as the balance between these guys,
Yeah.
as the guy that's kind of trying to keep the peace and keep everything kind of flowing smoothly. There are several moments, though, once they get out on the open water where it's just phenomenal, and you see the shark a few different times. When they shoot him and they put those barrels on him, like the tracking barrels, that's an awesome scene, too, because they think one's going to do it, and then all of a sudden it just goes under,
Yeah.
and then they end up shooting multiple into him, and he's still dragging them under. Really, really good. But then there's that particular shot where you see the shark full-fledged.
When he's chumming.
Yeah, and that's when you really get the first total up-close look at the shark. And I love that. I've already referenced Halloween in this film, or in this video, but much like with Halloween, we don't see the shark right from the beginning. It's a slow build, like with Halloween, you don't get a full view of Michael Myers until what, like 3/4 of the way into the film,
Yeah.
you know? So that's kind of what this reminds me of.
Yeah, and of course from that you get the famous quote,
Oh, yes.
"You're going to need a bigger boat," which was improvised by Roy on the spot. And that's how a lot of the big quotes
Amazing,
seem to
isn't
come, is that they're improvised.
And we've got to say, I think when most people think of Jaws, you think of that iconic score.
Yeah.
And so simple,
Yeah,
but it works.
it's perfect.
I mean, it really works. You know, the shots where, you know, we're seeing from the shark's point of view and that music just kind of comes in. It's really, really effective.
Straight up tension building.
Yeah,
That's all it takes is just down out.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be one of the most iconic scores probably ever, for sure.
Yeah, but one thing that I do love is, I don't know if we're skipping ahead, but when Bruce, as he's known, named after Steven Spielberg's accountant, I think is who it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but when he finally attacks...
Yes, that is the shark. His name is not Jaws.
Right, his name is Bruce. He attacks the boat, and, you know, I love the lack of music in this scene. When he's attacking the boat, they're struggling to stay afloat because the ship is sinking, and he takes down Quint.
Man.
And like I said,
like an awesome scene.
You could have easily let music tell the story, but I think that Spielberg made a good decision to allow the action to speak for itself.
And I don't know about you, but even when I watched this as an adult the past couple years, if I was out there filming that movie, even if I knew that it was a fake shark, something about being on the open water and you have this big mechanical, it's creepy, you know? It's something is scary about that. I don't know. And that's really the goriest part of the film, no doubt.
Yeah, because he crunches down on him.
Yeah, we totally see Robert Shaw's character just eaten. You know, he's chomped in half.
Spitting blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the most violent part of the movie. There's not a ton of it, though. It's really a kind of quiet movie throughout.
And we've got to talk about, I mean, we're kind of all over the place here, but that's okay. The cage scene where they lower Richard Dreyfuss into the shark cage, and they have like this big dart with him that he's going to try to pierce the shark with, and he drops the dart, the cage gets real screwed up, and they pull up the cage and he's gone. So they assume that he's dead, and this is right before Quint is, you know, eaten. So you go from thinking, okay, we lost Richard Dreyfuss's character, now we're losing Quint, you know, all that's left is Roy Scheider at this point. You know?
Yeah. And then the end, pretty much.
Yeah, the boat capsizes. There's nothing left of the boat except the, I don't know what you would call
the
that.
mast.
Yeah, and that's all that's left. Roy Scheider he's got a rifle or whatever, and he's on that part, but he's gradually coming down to the water, and if he gets to the point where there's nothing left, he knows he's doomed.
Yeah.
So the shark is coming at him. It's got the big, oxygen tank or whatever that is in his mouth, the big tank, and Roy's shooting for the tank, and of course, he finally gets it. Smile, you son of a bitch. Man, oh man.
Ooh, chills on my titties.
So good. Right before he hits the water, shark explodes. Wow. What a film.
Have you seen any of the sequels?
Well,
there's 3 of them.
I started watching Jaws 2 because Roy Scheider's in there.
So how do they explain the shark?
I don't even remember because I tapped out. I was not into it. It's something different. It's a different shark.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a horror villain where he comes
back.
That shark is dead, and it's something else. But I think people might like those. I think there's kind of like a cult audience for some of those sequels. I'm just give me the original. The original's a masterpiece, totally. You know.
Yeah. Well, Jaws created blockbusters. I mean, I think that's the known thing.
I mean, when someone's talking about a summer blockbuster, that's the first movie that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, because it did way better than anybody could have ever anticipated.
And we talked about it, I know already, we've said it a bunch of times, but just considering the time that came out and how cool that shark looked, it's amazing. It is so incredible to watch.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Spielberg and practical effects. You know, Jurassic Park works today because most of it was practical effects.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jaws.
Definitely.
And he just does it real.
Yeah.
And that's why his movies are timeless.
And it's just, like I said, I guess you can watch Jaws now, and yes, of course, you can see, oh, yeah, that kind of looks like a robot, duh. Yeah. But, I mean, of course it does, but still, it's scary, you know?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's a horror movie, I guess.
Essentially it is.
And I know I'm not alone on this. I used to frequently go on family vacations to Florida and go to the beach, and I would get into the water, but I cannot get into the ocean to this day without thinking about that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like getting out too far. I don't like my feet or my legs dangling because I just imagine a big great white, taking a bite out of me. It's really terrified a generation, and it still does.
Yeah. Away from the story itself, just the film in general, it was the highest grossing movie until Star Wars came around 2 years later, and it started the momentum of blockbusters.
Won some awards, didn't it? Or like best editing or
sound
or something?
Editing, sound. One thing that Spielberg was always upset about was that he was never nominated for best director for that.
Oh, ridiculous.
Yeah. It was nominated for best picture, but it lost to the better film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Which...
Okay, that's a great film.
But I don't think... Everything was screwed that year, because One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was one of the few films to win the top 5. One of 3 films to win the 5 main categories.
I guess if Jaws were to be beaten out by something, that's a good film to lose to, because that's amazing in its own right.
Yeah. But Jaws.
Jaws.
Relevant today, timeless.
Go pick up the 45th anniversary edition. Jaws finally coming to 4K Ultra High Definition. Nice packaging.
That's what it's called.
It's 4K Ultra High Definition. Beautiful pixels.
Make sure you have HDR, high dynamic range.
Oh, I cannot wait to watch that, because I thought the Universal Blu-ray from 2012, I believe, I remember going out to get that, and I was shocked when I put that in. I'm like, holy shit, the water pops, everything looks amazing. Cannot wait to see what the 4K looks like.
Yeah, very excited. It's on sale right now too, so pick it up for $20. Just do it.
I've probably bought Jaws like 5 times now, but that's okay, because, if there was a movie to do that for, this is one of those where it's okay.
Yeah. So Jaws, the 1975 classic. What do you think of it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Were you around at that time?
That movie? If you hate that movie,
please let us know so we can beat you up.
I'm going to have a problem, but, I'll respectfully talk to you, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know if you were able to see it in theaters back when it came out. That must have been quite the experience. Something that couldn't say I could do.
No, amazing. Show me the way to go home. I'm tired and